Post 2013, everything changed. The way we do business changed. My organization in particular had a couple of layoffs. I just laid off some team members, not once, but twice. So by 2016, I was once again laying off some employees and thinking that I might, in fact, be laid off as well, because there didn't seem to be any rhyme or reason behind it. And because it was our first time experiencing it to that magnitude, I think none of us felt like it was okay. And none of us felt like we would make it through that riff. But when I came out on the other side, it gave me pause to say, if I had got laid off, what would that mean for us? Because we were earning a significant amount of money, but we were spending a significant amount of money. And I I used to be embarrassed to say this, and now I'm not, because I realize it's a normal thing, a normal process. But we were making high six figures and we were living paycheck to paycheck.
Everyday people working 9 to 5, saving up that money, trying to survive, investing in the future, trying to be wise. We're gonna be money heroes. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Nick Johnson, host of Everyday Money Heroes, and I've reached early retirement. I'm here to provide information on how to obtain financial independence and inspire you through sharing stories of everyday people who are turning knowledge into freedom.
That hustle, always reaching for the sky. We're gonna be money heroes, never gonna shy.
Hello, and welcome to Everyday Money Heroes, where we provide information and inspiration to people of all ages to take control of their financial journey. I'm your host, Nick Johnson, and today we have Kim Hunter Borst with us. Before we get into our conversation with Kim, I would ask that if you're watching us on YouTube, that you would subscribe to Everyday Money Heroes there. If you are listening to this by way of podcast, that you would follow us on your podcast platform of choice. And a little bit about Kim before we get into our conversation. Kim has a very inspirational story of turning things around when most people feel as though it's too late. Kim had a wake-up call in 2016 that made her realize that a high income didn't mean a thing if you didn't have a firm foundation around finance. She went from drowning in debt at age 48 to completely retiring by age 58. Today, she is paying it forward as the founder of the We Wealth Collective and the Women of Fi community, helping women and allies build genuine wealth, joy, and adventure on their own terms. Let's welcome Kim to the show and learn how she pulled off a 180 in just 10 short years. Hello, Kim.
Ooh, hello, Nick.
Oh,
Thank you for
yeah.
having me. That's quite an introduction.
Hey, a lot of times we do things, Kim, and we hear like, man, I did all that. But you did, Kim, and it is a inspirational, it's an inspirational story. And so, first of all, kind of in that intro, I did mention that you are at this particular point on your FI journey, you have reached FI. And so want to
Yes.
congratulate you on that. And so with that being said, is it something that I mean, it's been a few years now. How long did it actually take to sink
Mm.
in that, you know what, I did this and I've achieved what I wanted to when it came to financial independence?
I have to say, from a numbers perspective, it registered right away.
Okay.
But from a psychological perspective, it did not.
Mm.
I think because it happened so quickly, I didn't trust it. So
Oh, wow.
once we reached that fire number,
Mm.
everyone kept saying, "Oh, you can walk away now." And mentally, I kept thinking, "No, I can't. It is
Mm.
not possible to walk away. I
Mhm.
have a paycheck coming in right now. I won't have a paycheck coming in once I retire unless I create it. And do
Uh,
I trust what we've been able to build in such a short amount of time? Do I trust
mhm.
that it works?"
Yeah.
And I think watching folks in this community do it and
Mhm.
not blink when the market has a correction, and they were retired long before I was, and they continued to be retired. I was like,
Mhm.
okay, it's doable. I can do this.
Yeah.
But I think I was on that um, one more year syndrome for about 3 years. I could not convince myself that it was possible, but I think a lot of that had more to do with my identity than with the numbers. I
Okay.
think I was so connected with what I did for a living and the cachet that bought and the income that it carried and the level of respect that it garnered that I could not figure out how to walk away from it. But when I did, it was sudden. When I
Mm,
recognized, okay, my identity is not tied to this job. My identity is not tied to this company and this title. Once I was done, and it sounds weird to say that, but once I was done, I was done.
mm,
And my company required a 90-day notice. I decided in January I was going to give my notice in March and leave July. My goal, weirdly enough, was to always retire at the age of 58. Don't know where I came up with that number, even
mm.
when I wasn't living as smart as I should with my money. But I ended up achieving that goal and retiring 30 days before I turned 58, which was phenomenal.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
One thing I
It still
will
feels like a
ask,
dream.
oh, yes. No, one thing I will ask, Kim, is that a lot of times individuals who have a large amount of success in their careers, they
Mhm,
find themselves, it's challenging to step away from it. And I'm not saying that individuals who go there and give their 40 hours and leave
mhm,
and make contributions aren't successful,
mhm.
but there are some things when you join a company or you are within an
Yes.
industry, you find yourself,
Mhm,
kind of climbing that ladder and you're being
mhm,
successful. It's kind
mhm.
of hard to step away from that. Is that something that you felt as though you were challenged with that? Okay, I'm doing good. I'm getting promotions. I'm getting new
Mhm.
roles. I don't want to step away from this.
That is exactly what I experienced. I would say that for myself, I started my career very early at the age of 21, and I started climbing that corporate ladder much faster than I anticipated. I got promoted 8 times in the first 9 years, and I
Wow.
got addicted to it. And, I'm that person that loves to solve problems, and I consider everything like a puzzle or a challenge, and I think everything's connected. So when I started to figure out, these very complex situations in my corporate life that were not so complex to me, I took it as kind of like just a bit of fun to solve for it and help others solve for it and navigate through it. And I became known for being able to do that, but I also became a little bit addicted to it. It was fun to go into a department that was in need of a refresh or rebrand and help them turn it around. And then once I turned it around, I was on to my next hurdle and excited about tackling the next effort. But with each change, there was additional income that came along with it. There were bonuses that came along with it. There was travel that came along with it. I got to live in the Philippines for 6 years as a result of what I was doing,
Wow.
and it was a nice lifestyle. It was a lot of fun, and I was single at the time, so I didn't have anything, holding me here in the States. I just wanted to see what else I could do, and it was liberating, and it was a lot of fun, and, um yeah, I have to say I got very comfortable with the travel it afforded me, the dinners out it afforded me, but at the same time, I recognize, hindsight being 2020, that I was just burning through everything that was coming in.
Mm. And so is it that you came to that realization that you were burning through everything in 2016?
Well, in 2016, that was a time where, if you remember, in 2013, the market dropped. And prior to that, my husband and I both worked in industries that were recession proof.
Okay.
I worked in healthcare. I worked in the health insurance space, and he worked in the hospital space.
Okay.
And rarely, if ever, were there layoffs in these spaces. But post 2013, everything changed. The way we do business changed. My organization in particular had a couple of layoffs. I just laid off some team members, not once, but twice. So by 2016, I was once again laying off some employees and thinking that I might, in fact, be laid off as well, because there didn't seem to be any rhyme or reason behind it. And because it was our first time experiencing it to that magnitude, I think none of us felt like it was okay. And none of us felt like we would make it through that riff. But when I came out on the other side, it gave me pause to say, if I had got laid off, what would that mean for us?
Mm.
Because we were earning a significant amount of money, but we were spending a significant amount of money. And I I used to be embarrassed to say this, and now I'm not because I realize it's a normal thing, a normal process. But we were making high six figures and we were living paycheck to paycheck. And we
Wow.
weren't even paycheck to paycheck. It was the next, we got paid opposite weeks. And by
Mm,
the Thursday before payday, we were like, okay, this needs to come in tomorrow or
mm,
what. So we realized a lot of, or I realized a lot of our expenditures were unnecessary and they were just lifestyle creep. I made more money, so I spent more money. I'm living in New York City. There are restaurants opening, there are galleries opening, there are shows, there's trips. My circle of friends were always traveling, so we were always traveling as well. And it's different when you're doing that level of spending for one person. But then I met my husband, and he had two children, and I inherited a family. And
oh,
then
wow.
and didn't stop the lifestyle. The lifestyle just went from one person to four people.
Mm,
And to live at that level of burn, it's it's frightening,
that's it.
and it's difficult to get off too. It's difficult
Yeah.
to say, "Let's stop,"
Mm.
especially with the circle of friends that we had. It was difficult.
Yeah, when you have that burn rate, and it's interesting that you share that term riff, Kim.
Mhm.
I know I spent 20 years my last job in the healthcare industry,
Mhm.
and I don't know if that's a term that they like to use in the healthcare industry,
Mhm.
but I remember I had gotten that job when I had got out of the military, and
Mhm.
everything was going okay, and then I heard somebody
Mhm.
say riff. I was like, I don't know
Yes.
what a riff is, and
Mhm.
they was like a reduction in force. I was like, you mean like a
Yes.
layoff? And he was
Yes.
like, yeah. And that was the first time that like really it kind of shook me because I was like, okay,
Mhm.
I was like, I didn't have to deal with this when I was in the military. As long as I
Mhm.
signed an enlistment, I had a job. And so that's what really made me realize, okay, well, I don't want to have that fear when the rumor mill starts and those layoffs start to come. I want to be okay. And that's really what caused me to really hone in and focus on, okay, well,
Mhm.
what can I do the next time these conversations start that I'll
Mhm.
be in a better place than I was the last time? And I know I
Yes.
went through, I think, 4 or 5 series of riffs in the 20 years I was
Mhm.
there. And
Mhm.
fortunately, my number was not called any of those times,
Yes.
but it got toward the tail end of it, Kim. I was raising my hand saying, hey, can I get that severance package?
Yes. I was about to say, life is different when you're experiencing or going through that process of a rift when you are financially secure. When you're
Yes.
financially secure, you're going, "Oh, punch my card. Give me the package. I'll take it."
Yeah.
But it just never came my way. And can I tell you something really weird?
Mhm.
My company was offering a package for those that have been there a certain amount of years. So if you were
Oh.
over 20 years and the package was really great. It was
Mhm.
I would have walked away with several $100,000
Mhm.
as a severance package, and I just kept going. I
Uh-huh.
have to be called. I have to be called,
Uh-huh.
and I wasn't called, and I was so disappointed. And I even said, "Can you put my name on the list?" And I was told, "No,
Yeah.
you're never. Your name is
Yeah.
not going on the list."
Yeah.
But I recognize early in my career, I would have taken that as kind of like a badge of honor, or I would have been a bit prideful about it and say, "Oh, I'm needed."
I'm
But I
essential.
don't think yes, I don't think it's a matter of being needed and essential. I
Mhm.
think it's a matter of they identify or um, we can become those people that are seen as steady Freddies. Like
Mhm.
this is a person that's going to get it done. Come
Mhm.
hell or high water, they're going to figure it out and solve for it.
Mhm.
And we just give them a bit of a promotion afterwards or give them a bit of money with a bonus, and they'll just keep doing this for us. And I recognized that in myself, and I was no longer comfortable with it. It
Mhm.
wasn't, uh, I didn't see it as a win win for both myself and the organization anymore. I started to see it as this isn't benefiting me.
Mhm.
And then once you are financially secure, I think it gives you that sense of I can start saying no to things where previously I would hesitate to say no. I didn't
Yeah.
want to be seen as someone that wouldn't be willing to. But then I looked around and I saw some of my peers who were constantly saying no. And then I read this really great book called Essentialism.
Oh,
And
okay.
I started to focus on what is essential for me in this role. What is it that I need to do? And what is it that I need to hold others accountable to do? And when I started focusing on just the things that I needed to work on and saying no to other things, the weirdest thing happened. I became more valuable then
Mm.
because I said no. And I didn't think that made much sense, and it feels counterintuitive, but I found it to be true. So I always recommended the book of Essentialism to my peers and counterparts and anyone that I encountered afterwards to say, you don't need to do everything. You don't need to be everything to everyone. I heard this statement that was made by one of the ladies at our retreat. She says, "You don't have to set yourself on fire to keep others warm."
Ooh.
And that was kind of like a mic drop moment, like, what am I doing? And one evening, one of my colleagues and I, we were in the office in the conference room working, and it was 7 o'clock. Then the next thing I know, it was 8 o'clock, and colleagues were leaving, saying goodnight, and we were still there working. And finally, at 10 o'clock at night, we looked at each other. We said, everyone else is at home having dinner with their families and relaxing. And we're here burning the midnight oil. Does it make a difference? Shouldn't
Mm.
we be at home? Shouldn't we be able to just leave? And from then on, I just started to say, I need to set some boundaries. I'm going to, I didn't quite quit. I still gave that level of commitment that felt valuable to me. But I also recognized that my job was from 8 to 5. And then after 5 o'clock, it was my life. And
Mm.
I think that's where I started to have that shift in that one more year syndrome, where I was able to say, you know what, I don't need to do this for everyone. I can do X for myself.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
Kim, it is amazing how oftentimes we want to drive. And one of the hardest things that I found in my career was that oftentimes I wanted to say yes to everything, but I had
Hmm.
to realize that oftentimes I'll say yes to everything, and there was a capacity and a bandwidth issue. And I
Hmm.
was not just doing the work for one person. Sometimes I was doing the work for two and three people. And
Exactly.
I was like, I was like, I need to start saying no so that they can allocate
Hmm.
funds so that we can
Hmm.
get more people in here. I was like, so
Yes.
I can't keep saying yes. I'm doing myself a
Yes.
disservice by constantly
Yes.
saying yes and doing that.
Yeah.
So I
I
completely
was talking
understand.
to another friend of mine. She works in a different industry, but I said, sometimes you have to let them fail.
And that's hard.
And because we deem it as our failure, but it isn't. If the organization isn't appropriately staffed or if the team isn't appropriately prepared, you doing the work of all those individuals, like you said, doing the work of those beyond yourself, you're not helping them or benefiting. You just make it look easy when it really isn't. And you're struggling, and they'll never give you the support that you need if you're constantly making it look easy and you're
Yeah.
constantly delivering. But when things start to fail, people start to question, well, why did it fail? And you can clearly show the data. It wasn't that I failed, it was we were not properly prepared.
Yeah. And the tragedy in that, Kim, is that you you yourself or individuals like you, they're
Mhm.
burning the midnight oil to make something happen. It
Yeah,
gets successful, but then you might have a counterpart in another
yeah,
area who
yeah,
failed, and they're like,
yeah.
okay, let's get that person some help. And the next thing you know, you see they got a requisition in the system, like, okay, oh,
Yes. You're
you
like,
get another
how does
head
this
count.
yes, yes. But I
That's
also
opportunity.
recognize, and I know this is about 5, but also if you're still working, there are key factors that you need to consider is that if you're constantly that person that they can come to and you solve for it by burning the midnight oil, how likely are you to be promoted? Not very,
Mm,
because they need you in that position to keep the wheels in motion. But
mm,
when you appropriately train other folks to do what they need to do and hold them accountable, or you ensure that the appropriate staffing levels are secured by not constantly making it happen, I think you vote not only yourself well, but those around you well. Your team succeeds, the department succeeds,
mm.
and you're not burned out.
Yeah, that's true. And I guess one other thing we can use to like kind of drive this point home is that when there are situations, especially when you're a salaried employee. It's different when you're hourly, because when you're working hourly and you're burning midnight oil,
Mhm.
there is at least some type of compensation for it.
Yes,
When you are a salaried associate, you don't
it's
get
not.
that luxury. And so
No.
what I often tell people is that if you are a salaried associate and
Mhm.
you're finding yourself on your financial independence journey and you need to
Mhm.
pay down debt, or you find that you don't need to, if you need to be doing some additional investing,
Mhm.
That additional time that you're giving it that job is actually some other time that you could be maybe giving to another organization, getting some additional
Mhm.
revenue, whether it's having a side hustle, I mean,
Mhm.
doing Uber, Lyft, whatever you want
Mhm.
to do to generate
Yes.
some additional money to,
Mhm.
be able to pay down debt and things like that. So also we have to just
Mhm.
look at, okay, this is actually not beneficial when it comes to my financial journey because this
Mhm.
extra time I'm not being compensated for.
Not at all.
So
Not at all.
you really have to
And
think
then
about it.
also, how much of that time are you taking away from your family?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
And
And
that's,
unfortunately, oftentimes with high net worth individuals or folks, not net worth, because we were high income earners, but we have a high net worth. Usually with high earners, you're burning the midnight oil to keep all of those things that you've purchased with those
mm,
large dollars.
yeah.
Keep them. Like the nicer cars, the nicer homes, the vacations. You're working around the clock to pay for something that's sitting in the garage while you work
Mm.
around the clock.
Yeah, because you can't even enjoy it.
Can't even enjoy it. Yeah.
Yeah. So let me ask you this, Kim. What, as you know, 10 years, as I said in the open, is very impressive.
Mhm.
What vehicles did you use in regards to
Ooh.
being able to achieve that?
I have to say we were more traditional than most. I know earlier in my life, back in 2008, before I really understood the financial industry, I thought I would get rich quick with in- uh, investment properties. And I
Uh-huh.
went that route. And then the bottom dropped out of the market in 2008, and I said never again.
Mm,
But by 2016, I recognized in 2014 we needed to do some things differently, but I started doing my research and exploring. But it was 2016 when I actually buckled down and made some changes. But by that point, because we were such high earners, we couldn't invest in Roths unless we were doing a backdoor, and I didn't understand it enough to do that. But because we were earning so much, we needed to defray on taxes. So we identified that it made more sense for us to focus on the traditional 401k, 403b. So I have a huge 401k, well, I have a very decent 401k, and he has a modest 403b. But his company also offers a very decent pension.
oh,
So most people don't have pensions anymore, but
mm,
his pension was a viable one, which was wonderful. And then my husband and I are 7 years age difference. So when we retired, I was 58 and he was 65. So he was already able to draw Social Security. So he was drawing Social Security and his pension. So between the 403b, 401k, his pension, his Social Security, we more than met our need. We actually didn't need to draw from any our investments for our living. I know most people are trying to figure out how to replace their paychecks, but because we were already at a certain age, my 401k allowed for the rule of 55.
mm,
So we could draw from my 401k. But because he was already in his 60s, we were able to draw from his 403b if need be. But I have to say, honestly, we've only had to draw from our investments to satisfy our fund buckets
oh,
because we are in those go-go years, and because this FI community, we've learned so much from them, and we learned that you don't have to live so high or you don't have to spend so much money to live a good life. And as long as you're spending what you value, you're able to bring some of those expenses down. So between his pension and his Social Security, our basic expenses are covered. Our
mm,
housing, our auto, groceries, those things, health insurance, all of those things are covered either by his income or by his company because they do have a fund that reimburses us for some of the health insurance. And then we are in our go-go years. My husband had a major health scare back in 2023, and he came out on the other side of it. So we said, while we have go-go years left in us, we're going to go. So
mm,
we draw from our 403b or 401k as needed to fund our fun bucket so we can travel and have a great time. And most recently, our first year of retirement, we I think July of last year, July 1 was our first day of retirement. So we're fast
mm,
approaching our anniversary.
oh, wow.
And we periodically sit down and say, how was the last year? Did it meet our expectations? Did we achieve all the things we wanted to achieve? And we recognize that the fun bucket was great, but it could be better.
Mm,
And in looking at our numbers, we realized that we were being way too conservative and that we could go a little bit higher for our fund bucket. So this next year, we're planning maybe a couple of months somewhere out of the country just to
Nice.
experience it, maybe a month in one place and come back home for a while because our kids are still here. They're adults, but we still want to spend time with them. And my in laws are still here. And I have an auntie that I adore who's 85 right now.
Oh,
And my
wow.
in laws are 90 and 91. So while they're still here, I don't think we'll spend as much time out of the country as we'd like. But for right now, we plan on playing a bit.
Oh, that's great. First of all, I'm happy to hear that your husband came out on the right side of that health scare. So that's great to hear. One of the things that I'd like to ask you, Kim, as you are now in your go-go years,
Mm-hmm.
one of the things I hear from individuals, they often say, if I'm not working, I'm gonna be so bored. I don't know what I will be doing. So, what would you say to individuals who would say, you know what, I just need to keep working because I just be bored? What are your thoughts about? What do you say to those individuals?
I I had this conversation with someone recently, and they said, "What are you doing now that you're not working?" Or one friend called and said, "Oh, can you come help me paint my dining room? You have
No,
time.
thank
You're
you.
not busy." I I have to find time to rest. I'm doing so much, and to anyone out there that thinks that life post working is boring, I have to consider, as my friend Kevin Sylvester says, that we spent so much time as kids playing. No one had to tell you how to spend your time during after
Mm,
school or during the summers. You just went out and did things. And then life happens and you start working as an adult. But when you retire, you get to go back to that playtime.
mhm.
And so I spend as much time as I want doing whatever I want. And it's just fantastic. I was the other day driving back from the gym and it was a great song on the radio and it was like 3:45 in the afternoon, the sun was shining, and all I kept thinking was a year prior, I would have been sitting either at my desk at home because I was working from home or sitting in an office working. I wouldn't have been just leaving a gym after spending 3 hours either in the hot tub or
Mhm.
swimming, playing, and having a great time. But I, your life post retirement is whatever you want to make it all those things that you aspire to do, whether the hobbies or and I know folks say, oh, you got to retire to something. And I tried that. I thought I would retire to creating a coaching business and working with women. And I'm very passionate about ensuring that women have agency over their finances and understand their money. But at the same time, I also recognize that I spent 40 plus years working for someone else and giving my time to someone else to earn money. And now that I'm on the other side of it, I'm going to give that same time to enjoying my life.
Mm.
So I spend time in community with friends. I have family members that I spend time with. We travel a bit, but it isn't an Instagram moment. It isn't what everyone says. Like when you're working, you try and squeeze everything you can until weekend, or you get a vacation and you try and squeeze everything into that 2 week vacation or that 1 week vacation in some instances. But
Mm.
when you're retired, every day is a vacation. Every day is the weekend, and you get to do what you want to do. And honestly, I oftentimes forget what day of the week it is. And it is phenomenal.
Yeah,
It is phenomenal.
Kim.
I would say, look, go ahead.
No, I literally I had that happen a couple weeks ago. I got thrown off because what holiday was it? It was Memorial Day.
Yes.
And it threw me all off because I was like, I don't know what it's like, especially because the kids weren't at school either. So I was like, I really don't have any point of reference or whatever. And I completely understand. It's like now I can drive around and like I'll get off sometime and I've even found out like my disposition toward people. I always felt
Yeah.
like I was a friendly guy, but it cause a lot of times I'm not in hurries now. So if I get
Mm-mm.
out in the middle of the day, I'll go on some place and somebody be like, "Oh, oh, sir, I'm sorry for." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm okay. Take your time.
Not in a hurry.
I'm not
Not
just
in a
not in a
hurry.
hurry." You
W
know.
I went last January, we went on the Fintox cruise. Was it last January? I think it was. But either way, we got off the cruise ship and it was there was some type of marathon going on. There was also a strike or something happening, and there was a snowstorm back east. It was a huge snowstorm. It was just this late January, early February, so no one could get out. Airport shut down completely. So
Mm,
the majority of us were five folks. We get to the airport. our flights are delayed or canceled, you see all these folks around us, they were really upset. I have to get back. I have a job. I have
Mm.
kids. They have to go to school and blah, blah. And we were just all like, oh, so I guess we're extending our vacation. Where are you going? Some
Yeah.
people went to, yeah, some people went to Little Havana. Some people went down to South Beach. Some people, I went to West Palm. Like, you just extended your time and you didn't worry about it. You gave up your seat so someone else could get a seat. And there was no rush. There was no skirmish. It was just, I
Mm.
just extend my time. And I
Yeah.
think that's the piece of it. When you are no longer tied to a job for a paycheck or a job for your income, you have that flexibility to move a little slower.
Mm.
And I find moving a little slower gives you time to notice things. Like
Yeah.
yesterday I was with my auntie, she's 85. And she just bought a new place. So we were going to get packing tape from Home Depot. And as we're driving along, the sun was starting to set. And I pulled over on the side of the road to watch it. And my
Oh.
auntie's like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Do you not notice this?" And I said, "I'm quite sure this has happened every day of my life, most of it. But for the last 35 years, I've been in too much of a hurry to appreciate it.
Mm.
Now I get to appreciate it. And
Yeah.
it's wonderful." Yeah.
Yeah, it is truly the little things
Mhm.
now that I appreciate more. And so, one thing
Yes.
I do want to ask you as we get ready to wrap up here, Kim,
Mhm.
what would you say to individuals who are in a situation similar to yourself, and
Mhm.
they might be in their mid 40s or even
Mhm.
early 50s or whatever, and all of a sudden they have this moment where they realize, okay, well, I might need to change some things about my finances.
Yeah.
How would you? What words of encouragement? What direction or insights could you give to those individuals?
I would say, and this sounds cliche, but to start with the basics. Start with what's coming in and what's going out. And the
Mm.
what's going out, identify what of that is a want wrapped up as a need. Because
Mm.
that's the one thing when you're a high earner, you convince yourself, oh, but we need phones. But do you need an iPhone 17, whatever it is right now? Or can you buy a phone that's maybe a couple of editions old that still works great? It's still a phone. Do you need the most elaborate new car, or can you go with a car that's a little older that you can purchase cash and not pay for? It's just all those little ways in which you can just start looking at your life. And I started with the Dave Ramsey baby steps. And I know it's not as popular with folks nowadays, but for me, it was critical for me to determine every dollar that came in the door, where was it going? And when we started looking at it, I recognized that we were paying $1,500 a month in minimum payments on credit card debt.
Wow.
And that was just the minimum payment. And then we recognized that American Express was charging us $6 a day in interest. Not like we were walking in Starbucks and walking out with a cup of coffee for $6. And
Mm.
that was just one of the credit cards. Because we were a blended family when we got married, I had credit cards, he had credit cards. And when you merge them all together and you take a look at it, it's frightening. But I encourage you, write down what's coming in and what's going out. But the biggest thing is write down all that debt. Include everything. Include that cell phone that you're making monthly payments on. Include the cars that you're paying for. Include vacations that are sitting on credit cards that's debt. But put it all out on the table. Stop sticking your head in the sand. Get that final number, and then let that be your starting point. Because for me, that number was $69,000. And I think before we sat down and wrote everything out, I would have said it was about $40,000. So to see $69,000 at the bottom of that tally sheet, it was frightening, but it was also an opportunity to say, okay, now what can we do to change this? That $1,500 a month that we paid in interest or paid in minimum payments, that $1,500 became our $1,500 once we turned things around.
Mm.
And we just started being very frank with our friends and family to say, that's not where we are right now. These are some things we need to do differently. So if you are a late starter and a high earner, you're going to feel like the biggest idiot on the planet for a short period of time.
Mm.
Grin and bear it, get through it, but then start digging in. Read the book, The Simple Path to Wealth.
Mhm.
Get on some of the five podcasts, like such as this, and start encountering those folks that are doing it and making it simple. It is not get rich quick overnight. It is very basic and very simple. But once you learn the process and you stick with it, you'll be fine. 40s, 50s, it's still time. Even in
Yeah.
your 60s, I don't think it's too late.
Yeah, it definitely is still time.
Mhm.
Now, one of the things we'll wrap up on here, Kim, is that I know that you are a community builder. And so I know that you have these great in-person events.
Yeah.
So could you tell the audience about those events?
So, for starters, we started, my two good friends and I, Zuzka Najati and Chantal Martin. We started the Women of Phi, and it was just our desire to bring in person events to the Northeast. And we recognized that there was a need to build these events out for women. And we started with a Woman of Phi, women only Phi event, in person Phi event, similar to a camp, but it was just specific to women in general. And what we identified with the ladies is they were like, well, I'd like to bring my partner, or I'd like to bring my best friend, and it's a guy, and can we make spaces for them? So we started doing the co-ed events as well. So every April, the Women of Phi, we hold a 3-day weekend event in on the Chesapeake Bay in Maryland, and then we follow that up in the fall in the Pennsylvania mountains with a 4-day weekend for co-ed spaces. And then because we are holding those just twice a year, we miss the interaction with one another. We also co moderate a women's online virtual group called the We Wealth Collective. We meet the
Mhm.
third Thursday of every month through Facebook, and it is wonderful. We have women coming in and telling us about uh, how they're living life on their own terms. Some come in and provide insight sessions teaching us things. We had a woman from the FBI come in and talk to us about cybersecurity.
Mhm.
Jackie Cummins Koski came in and talked about taxes. So it's exciting. It's a great time to be a woman in FI. And I have to say this: we are not men hating women. We are just women that recognize that we teach our boys to be brave and we teach our girls to be kind. And in that process, we send messaging to women that you're not good with money or you're not smart with numbers. But what we identified is that when women learn how to invest, they outpace their male counterparts because they're not chasing the next, they're not gambling with it. They're not chasing to improve, to outpace someone else or being competitive with someone else. They're just risk aware and they're looking to build their future. So we just give them that agency and I'm super excited about it. So if you'd like to join us, it is thewomanofi.com. You can follow us, join us on the link tree. We send out a monthly newsletter to keep you informed. The event in November is a co ed event. We would love to have you guys join us. We have a couple of seats still available, so check us out. And then with the We Wealth Collective, go to WEWC, just do We Wealth Collective on Facebook and look up that group and plug in.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
that's
That
it.
is great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that, Kim. I will make sure to put all that information down in the description of this episode.
Mhm.
I want to thank you so much for your time here, Kim. We could have definitely gone for another 45 minutes. And so thank you for what you're doing in your in the next phase of after five. So definitely being a community builder and connecting individuals is something that's extremely important within society as a whole because we're so isolated and it's important for us to come together and be able to build each other up. So that being said, I'm going to go ahead sign off here. I want to remind everyone that if you have not, please subscribe to Everyday Money Heroes on YouTube and follow us on your podcast platform of choice. And as always, I'm your host, Nick Johnson, and I'm going to remind you to trust the process. Have a great day.